Hey everyone, welcome back to the series. This is episode 5 of Building or Chat App in C from Scratch. In the last episode, we implemented the ability to display multiple messages. So we can see it right here. Hello world, how are you? Test 1, 2, 3, 4. So in today's video, we're gonna be implementing a more robust input box system because currently if we type or make a mistake, we can't press backspace, we cannot use the arrow keys to interact with our input box. So that's what we're gonna be focusing on in today's video. If you guys are enjoying the series, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and also leave a comment down below. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. Alright guys, so you can see we have our inputbox.h file right here. We're just gonna open that. So this is currently our input box system. We're just using a string concat and that is it. So let's start implementing a more robust input box system. Let's close all of these files in VS Code. Right, and let's start. So we're gonna initialize our header file with our header guards. So hash if not defined underscore input box h, hash define underscore input box h, and the hash endif. And in between these, we're gonna include SDL. Let's include our up.h. We're gonna create a new file. We're gonna call it inputbox.def.h. We're gonna initialize it. So hash if not defined underscore input box def underscore h, hash define input box def h, hash endif. We're gonna include, let's see, we're gonna include sdl2/sdl.h. We're gonna define a structure. We're gonna call it input box, and input box underscore t. We're gonna have a char pointer. Let's call it data. We're gonna define an SDL rect canvas. We're gonna have a SDL color. We're gonna do a type def struct input data. We're then gonna say so we're gonna have a char pointer. We're gonna call it, let's define a character. So we're gonna have a type def struct input character input char underscore t. It's gonna contain a char pointer to a UTF-8 char. So we're gonna be using UTF-8 encoding for the Unicode stuff. We're gonna have a size t for our byte length. but let's call it UTF-8 char length. We're then inside of our input data structure, we're gonna have input char underscore t pointer characters. We're gonna have a size t character count, and that should be it. So in our input box structure, we're gonna, we should do type def struct input data, and the type def should be input data underscore t. So we'll have our input data underscore t. We'll call it input. Okay. Each one of our characters, guys, will have its own canvas. So we'll have a SDL rect canvas within our input character structure. Our input box will have its own font. So we'll define a TTF font pointer font. We'll include SDL2/SDL underscore TTF.h. It will have its own font size. And let's just leave our structure like that for now. Wait, let's define one more thing. We want to have a cursor position. So we'll have a size C cursor position, because we'll need to handle the cursor movement and stuff. Yeah. So now in our up.h, we're gonna include our input box definition. And then we can focus on our input box.h now. So in our input box.h, we're gonna create a void pointer input box underscore init function, and it's gonna take in a font that we want to use. It's gonna take in the size that we want to use on the font. It's gonna take in a color. So let's take in a SDL color, canvas color. Wait, let's open up our input box def.h again. We'll need to define our text color. So we'll have another color. Let's call it make it a SDL color input color. Alright. Or let's just call it text color. Alright. So now that we have done that, we'll accept SDL color for our text color. We'll then have another function, guys. Let's make it a void input box destroy. It will accept a input box underscore t pointer input box. We'll also have a function to display our input box, so input box underscore t input box. Oh, and our init function should also accept a reference to our input box. We'll also have a input box create function. It will accept a input box t pointer. It will then accept a no, it will not accept one. The type for this input box create function should return an input box t. It will then take in a font, then it will take in the font size, then the text color, then it will take in the canvas color. So now that we have done that, guys, let's create another file. We'll call it inputbox.c. We'll then include our inputbox.h header file. We'll then copy these function prototypes, and let's start creating our inputbox init function. So our inputbox init function will essentially set the properties of our given input box that we pass in as a reference. So we'll say input box font equals to font, input box font size equals to the font size. We'll say input box color is equal to the canvas color. Let's change this from canvas color to just color, because that makes more sense. We'll then have input box text color equals to the text color. And this looks pretty good now. Now let's focus on our input box create function. So it should return an input box t structure. So we'll type input box t input box. Let's call it new input box. So new input box. We'll initialize it to 0, and then at the end of the function, we'll just return our new input box. We'll say input box init. We'll pass in a reference to our new input box. We'll then pass in the parameters that were given to the input box create function, so the font, then the font size, then the text color, then the color. Yeah, this should be color instead of canvas color. Alright. So now let's focus on our destroy function. So the destroy function will essentially, will essentially free all the memory that was used by the input box. So it will essentially, we'll have free input box. Let's create another function, guys, before we focus on the input box destroy function. We'll have a void input box clear input box underscore t input box so let's create that function now, void input box underscore clear input box t input box, and it will essentially do this. It will say, let's create a pointer input called input data. Let's not do that. Let's just do free input box input dot characters. But before we do that, since we're gonna be allocating memory in there, inside of that, we're gonna first iterate through each characters. So we're gonna say for size ti equals to 0, I is less than our input box input dot character count I plus plus. We're gonna free our input box input dot characters at index I dot utf8 char. We're then gonna free our input box input characters. Then we're gonna say input box input dot characters equals to null. And then we need to reset our character count. So we'll say input box input dot character count equals to 0. Alright, so let's look at our structure. Alright, so we're essentially storing each character as a separate segment. But let's say we want to implement like clipboard copying. We'll define a char pointer right here. Let's call it data. Whenever we're clearing our input box, we'll need to free our input box input dot data, and we'll need to free our input box data. Then we will need to set it equal to null. So now, guys, in our destroy function, we just call our input box clear function. We pass in a reference to our input box. And yeah, that should be it for now. So we implemented this clear function. Let's focus on to actually display our input box on the screen now. So we need to also set the width and height properties of our input box. So let's actually do something like this. So we'll have an int width, int height inside our input box init function. We'll also have it in our input box create function. So int width, int height, and let us actually do this. So let's just copy our function definitions, or prototypes I mean, and let's replace it in our C source code. Let's go to the create, replace it. Alright, so now that we have done that, in our init function, we'll need to first define some properties. Or no, we don't need to do that, because we're passing in our width and our height of our input box. So therefore, we'll just say input box canvas dot width is equal to or width that we specify for our input box. Then our input box canvas dot height is equal to our height that we specify. Alright. And now in our create function, we'll need to modify this function call to our init function. So right here, we'll specify our width and our height. And now let's try to actually render our input box. Let's see if this is actually working, guys. So we're gonna type SDL set render draw color. Let's modify our display function because we're including our app.h header file so that we can use the render that the app provides. So we'll make this accept a app underscore t pointer to our app, and let's modify this prototype within our header file. So in order to render our input box, we're gonna call SDL set render draw color up render ampersand up render. We're gonna call our color2 param function for expanding our SDL color into parameters. We're gonna pass in our input box color. We're then gonna call SDL render draw rect up render ampersand input box canvas, then SDL render fill rect up render ampersand input box canvas. All right. Alright guys, so now that we have done that, let's try and test out our input box system. So let's go over to our app.c. Let's close all of these open input box files for now. And up the top, we're gonna include our input box .h header file. Now, in our up underscore run function, this is where we're rendering our input box. This input box, we're gonna replace it. So here's what we're gonna do. In our up.h, we're gonna open it. We're gonna go into the up structure. We're then gonna add our input box. So this will be our input box, t pointer input box. Yeah, this shouldn't be a pointer. Just let it be a structure. Right, so now that we have done that, guys, here's what we're gonna do. Instead of doing all of this, we can remove all of this. Yeah, we can remove everything right here. We're gonna call our input box init function. We're gonna pass in a reference to our up input box. We're gonna pass in a font. Let's make it be our up font. And the font size, or up font size, and the text color, let's let it be our input box text color. And then our height, it will essentially be our current up width, window width, minus 40 pixels. Our height will be 50 pixels. Our color will be just our input box underscore color. We'll then set the position of our input box now, guys. So we'll say up input box dot x dot canvas dot x is equal to our up win width minus our up input box dot or up input box. Wait, hold on. Wait, it will be equal to our up win width minus our up input box dot canvas dot width divided by 2. Oh, this should be win width. So this should be input underscore box. And then our input box dot canvas dot y should be our up win height minus our up input box dot canvas dot height minus, let's say, 20 pixels. And then we can just say input box underscore display. We pass in our up, then our input or up input box. So let us test our code. Alright, so we have undefined references. That's because, as you guys already know, we need to set update our build script to include or inputbox.c. And we need to do this for our Linux script as well. Alright, so now we can recompile our code. And let's see what happens. So it still works, guys. It still works. But if we type something now, nothing will not happen. It still happens, but because we changed the way how we're rendering stuff, it doesn't really show. So let's get rid of the way we handle inputs for now. Yeah, we can delete this out of our event loop. So let's quickly implement the ability in our input box system to be able to take in events, input events, and then display them. So we'll say void input box underscore handle underscore events. We'll take in a up underscore t up. We'll take in our input box underscore t input box. And let's create our input handler. So the first thing we'll need to do is check the event type. So we'll check if the up event.type is equal to, let's do a is equal to a SDL text input event. We'll then also handle if the up event dot type is equal to SDL t up event. Let's wrap this in a switch statement instead. So switch up event type, and we can just do case SDL text input, then we'll break case SDL underscore key up event, can just break, and we can just delete these if statements. So guys, currently we haven't implemented any function to actually simplify the process of adding any text. So we're gonna do it right now. We're gonna create some functions. We're gonna create one called, let's make it a void input box underscore add char. So it will be used for like adding a character. So it will accept a char pointer to a string, a UTF-8 char, and we'll also have one called void input box add input, let's call it add input char and add input data. It will, wait, this shouldn't accept a up underscore t, it should just take in our input box underscore t input box. It will then take our input data function, now will taking an input box key pointer input box. It will then take in a const char pointer string let's just call it data instead of string, and this should be it. So let's just copy our function prototypes and implement these functions. So so our add input char function. Here's how it's gonna work. So each time we add a input data, we will increase our cursor position by 1. We'll also, guys, implement something for getting Unicode characters from our data that we pass in. Because let's say we enter, let me show you guys something. So if I open up the chat app and I press Windows dot on my keyboard and I enter like a bunch of emoji, you can see it displays those. Now when we enter stuff like that, it happens that SDL receives those emojis all at once. So it will be combined into a single string. So we'll need to extract each UTF-8 character before placing it in here. So let's just implement our add input char function for now. So here's what we'll do. We'll say let's think about this for a second. So this is our input data structure, input char structure. The only thing we'll need to do is just get our current cursor position and add a character there. So here's what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna have a input data underscore t new characters equals to realloc input box. So input box input dot characters. We'll also define a size c new character. Let's call it new char count. It will be equal to our input box input dot character count plus 1. We will then pass in our new char count here. We'll multiply it by our, this is our input data. This should be input char underscore t pointer. New characters equals to realloc, and then we multiply our new char count by the size of our input char t structure in bytes. Then, after we have done that, We also need to ensure that our UTF-8 char is not null. So we'll say if not UTF-8 char, and we'll just return. So each time we try to add a new character, we'll need to ensure that our new character's pointer is not null. So if it is null, then we'll just return. So that will prevent any segmentation faults. But if it is not null, then we will say new characters index position new underscore char count -1 dot UTF-8 char is equal to UTF-8 char. We'll say new characters index new char count -1 dot UTF-8 char length is equal to UTF-8 char length. We'll define a size t UTF-8 char length up here. Set it equal to the string length of our UTF-8 char. We'll then say new characters index position new char count -1 dot canvas. Alright, so here's the thing. So our input box will have a custom font and a custom font size. So here's what we're gonna do. Each time we add a character, let's create another function called void inputbox underscore set font size. It will accept the input box t pointer input box, and it will just call ttf set font size. It will take in the input box font, and it will take in the input box font size. Let's copy this and let's paste this function definition or prototype in here. Alright, and now that we have done that, each time we're adding a character, we need to ensure that we set the correct font size. So we'll just call this function, which is input box set font size, on our input box. And let's do it above here, make it look cleaner. So now guys, after that we can just call our function. So we'll call ttf underscore size text. We'll pass in our font. We'll pass in our UTF-8 character, which should be our input box font. And then we pass in our canvas. Let's create two variables. Let's call one int UTF-8 char width equal to 0 and UTF-8 char height equal to 0. And then we'll pass in a reference to our UTF-8 char width and a reference to our UTF-8 char height. And once we do that, now we'll just say input box canvas dot width is equal to our UTF-8 char width and inputbox canvas.height is equal to our UTF-8 char height. Wait, it shouldn't be inputbox canvas. It's supposed to be the new character that we're adding. So it should be new characters at index position new char count -1 dot canvas dot width. Let's just copy right here and replace this with this. And set the height right there. Alright, so to clean this up a bit, let's move this up here instead. Alright, so now it looks a little cleaner. So here's the next thing we need to do, guys. We need to ensure that we update our input box input.characters pointer to be equal to our new characters. We also need to update the input count. So we'll say input box input.character count is equal to our new char count. Above here, we'll need to shift our character that we inputted based on where our cursor position is. So, here's what we're gonna do. Right here, we're gonna say for size ti is equal to our new char count and -1, and I is greater than our cursor position, so which will be our input box input.cursor position. Then we will decrement I. And inside of our loop, guys, we will shift. So here's what we'll do. We'll insert the character at the end, and then we will shift it to the appropriate cursor position. So we'll just say new characters index new char count at index position I is equal to so we'll get our save our current character. So we'll say input char underscore t current char is equal to our new characters at index I. And then we'll set new characters at index I -1 equal to our current character, But before we do that, we'll just set our new characters at index position I equal to our new characters at index I minus 1. So we're essentially shifting or swapping them. Alright. So now that we have done that, let's try to test this out for a second. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say for size ti is equal to, let's get our data length. So size t, data length is equal to 0. No, is equal to the string length of our data. And then we say I is less than our data length, I plus plus. We will then say, alright, since guys we're gonna need to handle UTF-8 data, for now we're gonna be handling ASCII data. And then we're gonna implement UTF-8. So we're just gonna iterate through each character. And here's what we're gonna do. So let's call our input add our input box underscore add input char function. Will pass in our input box. We'll then pass in our current data at index I. So we'll create a simple char pointer right here. So we'll say char 2. Let's make this a const char 2, which takes in the data at index I. And this should be it. So now that we have done that, guys, within our handle events function, we can use this input data function. So we'll call, wait, let's see something. So we forgot to do something in our input char function, guys, because here is the thing. Each time we'll need to increase our cursor position, right? So we'll say input box input dot cursor position plus plus. All right. So now when we're typing something, we'll just call input box we'll just type in input box add input data. Oh, I made a mistake with this add input function, because this add input char function will only accept a heap allocated variable. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say char pointer UTF-8 char is equal to emplate what's our string function again? So we defined it in here, our loop str function. So let's include our strings input.h, and we'll utilize our string dup str function, which will take in a string and duplicate it on the heap. So we'll just copy this right here and pass it in as a parameter to that function. Then we'll just pass in our UTF-8 Alright, so also guys, we'll need to store our data in here. So we'll create another function. We'll call it inputbox underscore get input data. It will take in a reference to our input box. It will iterate through each characters and we'll build a string from it. So we'll say char pointer new string is equal to null. We'll return a new string. We'll say for size t I equals to 0 as less than our input box input dot character count I plus plus. We'll then say string underscore concat str new ampersand new string. And for each one of our characters, guys, at index position I, so our input box input input.characters index I dot UTF-8 char, we'll just concatenate that. And then we'll just return our new string. So let's just copy these prototypes and paste it in here. And let's create another function. This one will allow us to get our primary input data, which will be the one that will be in our structure. So we'll say void input box get primary data, and it will take in our input box. So let's implement that function. So here's what it's gonna do. It will essentially free our current input box data, so our free input box input.data, and then it will free our input box data, and then it will call our input box underscore get input data function, and then it will place that inside of our input box data. Alright, so in our input box definition, guys, we'll have a Boolean value. Let's include std bool right here. The Boolean value, it will be enter pressed, let's call it that. Alright, so for text input, no, we can call this add input data function, and we'll pass in our input box then we will take our up event text.text and we'll just add it. So now guys that we have done that, whenever we'll handle it this thing now for detecting whenever we press enter on our keyboard. So we'll say if up switch up event dot key sim, we'll say case SDL k underscore return, we'll break right here. Oh, dot key sim this should be. We'll then say set our input box enter pressed equal to true. Now guys, each time we add our input data, we'll call this function. We'll call input box get primary data input box. Alright. Now let's try to test out our input box, guys. So let's close all of these stuff for now. And let's open up our up.c. Now inside of where we're passing in our events, we'll call our input box handle events function. We'll then pass in a reference to our app and then a reference to our app input box. And we'll also do the same thing right here. So we can delete this right here. We can say input box handle events up ampersand up input box. And now let's actually update our display function to try to display a message onto the screen. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to call our input box set font size function that we created. Gonna pass in our input box. We'll then say, let's see. Alright, so we'll then try to render our text, right? So we'll say SDL surface text surface is equal to TTF render text blended. We'll pass in our input box font, we'll pass in our text, which is our input box data for now. We'll fix this later on. We'll then pass in a color, so our input color. Which will be our input box text color. We'll then create our texture, so text underscore texture equals SDL create texture from surface up render. Then we'll pass in our text surface and we'll say SDL render copy of render text underscore texture null ampersand input box. Yeah, input box. Let's just copy it on the canvas for now. Right, and then SDL destroy texture of destroy texture text texture, and also let's free our surface. SDL free surface text surface, and let's try to test out our function now, our input box system. Alright, so let's try to type something now. Something is being displayed right there. But we can't really see it. Let's try to fix that real quick. So we're copying. Yeah, so here's the thing, guys. We need to render each character one by one since we're storing each character in a list. So let's do that right now. So we'll just create a function. Let's call it input box render characters. Takes in a up t pointer, up input box t pointer input box. And let's create our render characters function. So input box render characters accepts up t pointer up input box t input box. Yeah, passing the up, then the input box. So we'll essentially, guys, just say for size ti is equal to 0 as less than our input box input.character count I++. We'll then say for each character we'll say SDL. Yeah, we'll need to do the same rendering logic for rendering text, or rendering each character one at a time. So SDL surface text surface is equal to TTF render text blended. We'll then pass in our input box font. We'll then pass in our text, which will be our input box input.characters at index I .utf8 char. We'll then create our, we need to pass in the color as well. So we'll just set it equal to our input box text color. We'll then create our texture. So SDL texture pointer text underscore texture equals SDL create texture from surface. We'll then pass in our up render, then our text surface. Then we will do a SDL render copy text underscore texture. And then we'll do SDL free surface text surface, then SDL destroy texture text underscore texture. Alright. Now guys, we'll need to initialize the starting character position. Right, so let's define a variable int start x. Hold on, int start x equals to our input box input box canvas.x. Let's do +1, and then our start y, we'll set it equal to our input box canvas.y. Yeah, and that should be it. Alright, so now all we actually need, guys, is just our start x, but let's just keep our start y as that for now. So all we need to do is just say we need to ensure that we call input box set font size input box up here. Then we render our character, but before and then after we render our character surface, yeah, we can actually set the position of our character. So we'll say input box input.characters index I dot canvas dot x is equal to our start x, and our input box input.characters index I dot canvas dot y is equal to our start y. And then we can just increment our start y. So we can say start y plus equal to our input box input.characters at index I. No, not start y, it should be start x plus equal our input box input.characters index I dot canvas dot width. And then now, guys, let's try to compile our code. Let's try and see what happens. Alright, we got an error. What was that error? Too many arguments to SDL render copy. Too few. Oh, okay. So we need to pass in our up render, then our texture. We'll set this to null, and then we'll pass in our destination rectangle, which will be our input box input dot characters index I dot canvas. And let's run our code. So let's try to type. Nothing is happening. Or is it happening? Oh, that's because we call our render characters function, right? We did that, so that's not the issue. Let's try to print out our data and see what happens. Just to ensure that we're actually typing in some stuff. So input box data equals to input box data. And let's run our code. So if we type something, it is actually typing, but it's not showing on the screen for some reason. Why is that? Alright, we set our start Y, we set our start X. Yeah, we can also get rid of this here right here for now, guys. Can also get rid of this. Yeah, we can get rid of this. So why isn't it showing our message? We call our render characters function. We pass in our font, we pass in everything, we pass in our text color. This is our text color. Let's check our init function to see if we're setting the properties correctly. Ah, I see. Yeah, our up font size is 0, right? We never initialized it. No wonder why. So let's try typing it. Alright. Look at that, guys. Alright. So here's one of the mistakes I realized I made, guys. We aren't freeing our buffers or input box and all of those stuff. So we need to actually do that. So let's do it right now. So we need to ensure that when we close our application, we free every single memory. So we'll call our input box destroy function. We'll pass in a reference to our up input box. We'll also need to destroy our message list. Wait, input box destroy, why is this? Yeah, input box. Let's go into our up t. Let's get rid of that underscore. Alright, so once we do that, guys, it will prevent us from having any memory leaks. Oh, we have an error. What was that error? Wait, let's stop printing out this thing. Let's comment this out. Handle event. Oh, I see. Yeah, we renamed that, so we need to take this underscore out. And let's close our program. And let's rebuild it. So if we type something, hello world, it works. Alright. So guys, now that it's working, and we fixed those memory leaks and stuff, here's what we're gonna do. If you notice, when we type in our input box, there's no cursor position. So we're gonna display our cursor. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna open up our input box definition. In our input data, in our input box structure, we'll define a SDL rect for our cursor. So SDL rect cursor. We'll also define a SDL color for our cursor color. Alright, so now for our init function, let's go into our input box.h. At the end, we're gonna add an int. Let's call it cursor width. And let's call it cursor height. And let's create another variable. Let's call it SDL, another parameter, SDL color, cursor color. Alright, let's just copy these stuff and paste it right into our create function. And then now guys, in our inputbox.c file, let's just copy these prototypes. Yeah, let's just copy these. Let's just paste it in. Alright. So now that we have done that, in our init function, we can just say input box cursor dot width is equal to our cursor width, and input box cursor height is equal to our cursor height, and then input box cursor color is equal to our cursor color, and then we'll render our cursor, guys. we'll need to render our cursor. So in order to render our cursor, let's create a function called render cursor. So void inputbox render cursor up underscore t up inputbox underscore t inputbox. So we'll get our current cursor position. And then we will literally like shift the character over so our cursor can go in between characters. So let's do this. So we'll say input box input dot input box canvas. We'll do SDL set render draw color up render color to param input box cursor color. We'll then say SDL render draw rect up render ampersand input box cursor. We'll then say SDL render fill rect up render input box cursor, and then that should be it. But in our render characters function, we'll need to shift our character over if the cursor position is gonna be in between there, you know. So let's do that. We'll say if I is equal to our input box input dot cursor pos, then we will set our start x plus equal to our input box input with our input box cursor width. We will then we'll need to initialize our input box position, our input box cursor x position. So we'll say our input box cursor dot x is equal to start x, which will be the current position of our character. We will then change the current position of our character to be equal to input box cursor width, and then we will set it equal to the new position that we updated it with. And then now guys, inside of our render cursor function, we just need to set the Y position. So we'll just say input box cursor input box cursor.y equals to our input box canvas.height minus our input box cursor.height divided by 2. So it will center it vertically. Now let's try to actually use it. So right here where we're initializing it within our app.c, we will set our cursor width to be 2 pixels. We will set our cursor height to be 50 pixels. Let's make it 25. We will set our cursor color to be green. So let's do parentheses SDL color 0x00 0x ff 0x00 0x ff. And then now guys, let's see, we have an error in here. Where is that error coming from? Oh yeah, right here. We need to pass in our cursor width, our cursor height, and our cursor color. So let's run our build.bat script and let's see what happens. We have an error. Redefinition of parameter. Oh, is that in the input box.h? Oh, let's see. All right, so now let's test it out. Hello. We can't see our cursor. Is it there? Oh, did we call our render cursor function? No, we didn't. So we need to say input box render cursor up input box. And let's rerun our build script. Let's try to type. Yeah, it won't show as yet, guys. Oh, I think I know what's going on actually. So our cursor is currently at the end, and because we aren't handling like arrow keys as yet, that's what's going on. So let's actually handle that right now. So case SDL underscore key down event break. We'll do another switch inside of here. We'll say switch up event.key.keysim.sim. We'll say case SDLK underscore left, case SDLK underscore right. We'll then break right here. In here, we'll just say if if input box input sim. Oh, this should be switch dot cursor pos is greater than if input box input dot cursor pos is greater than 0, we can just say if inputbox dot cursor pos, then we'll just say inputbox input dot cursor pos minus minus. Otherwise, we'll just say if inputbox input dot cursor pos is less than or input box input dot character count I plus then our character count, then we will say input box input dot cursor pos plus plus, and let's see what happens. So we type something, and if we try to move our arrow keys, nothing happens. That's because we haven't handled any key down events. So what we'll need to do in our up.c file, in our event loop here, we'll just say else if up.e.type is equal to sdl key down. Wait, let's just do a or statement right here. We can just do a or statement instead of writing pure if statements. So we'll just say or up event.type is equal to key up, and we'll just say or up event.type is equal to sdl key down. SDL key down. And let's rerun our build script and let's see what happens. So we type ABC and we can see our cursor at the top of our screen. Now the reason why it's not actually, showing in here, it's because we haven't set the Y position correctly. So let's go in our render cursor function. We'll just say our input box canvas dot y plus our input box canvas dot height minus our input box cursor dot height divided by 2 to center it vertically within the input box. And let's run our build script and let's try to type something now. And now guys, you can see we have a simple cursor that we can move. Let's change our input box color. Let's open up our upconfig.h and change our input box color. Let's change it to black. And let's run our build script. Alright, let's type something, hello, and you can see we have the cursor right there. Let's make our cursor be bigger. So instead of 25, let's make it be 50. Let's run our build.bat. So if we type hello, you can see our cursor is moving. Alright. But we can't move to the right for some reason anymore. Yeah, so let's fix that up. So let's fix that real quick. So in our render characters function, we'll ensure that we set our input box input.cursor.x equal to our start x. Input.cursor or input box cursor.x, and then we run our build script and let's see what happens. So if we type HELLO, alright, we can see something is happening, right? Now for some reason, our cursor position doesn't move when we type in a character for some reason. Why is that? Yeah, because when we oh, I see. So the thing is, guys, we're not setting our input cursor X at the end. So we're just gonna say out of here, if our input box input cursor pos is equal to our input box input dot character count, then we will set our input box cursor dot x plus equal to our input box input dot characters at index input box input dot character count -1 dot canvas dot x plus let's define a variable right here. Let's call it last character index, and we'll set it equal to just this, or input box character count -1. It will only do that if that is not 0, because this is a size t, don't want to create any segmentation faults. Otherwise 0. So now, guys, we'll just pass in our last character index here, and then we'll just say box input dot characters index last character index dot canvas dot width, and that should be it. So if we type something now, we should see our cursor going upwards like that. Wait, why is our screen blank for some reason? For cursor pos, I see the issue. So we need to ensure that our input box is not empty. So we need to say if input box input dot characters, then we'll do that. else it will cause segmentation faults. Alright, let's see what's going on. So if we type hello, yeah, let's go. Alright. So we can move our cursor now. Let's try to implement backspace now. Alright. So let's create a backspace function. So backspaces should be pretty simple. So let's create a void inputbox backspace up t pointer up inputbox t inputbox. Wait, it will not accept the up t, just the input box. We'll then say let's think about how this backspace will work. So we'll just delete starting from the current cursor position and shift backwards. So here's what we're gonna do, guys. We're just gonna say if the cursor position is 0, then we don't want to do anything. So we'll have a checkup here. We'll say if not, input box input dot characters or not input box input dot cursor pos, then we'll just return. We'll then say starting from our current cursor position. So if our cursor position is, let's say 1, we'll shift it to the end. And then we'll reallocate some memory, then that's how we'll delete it. Alright. So we'll just say size t, new count equals to our input box, input dot character count minus 1. We'll then shift starting from our cursor position and shift the current character to the end. So let's say we have A, B, C, D, and we hit backspace. Our cursor position will be at 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll get our cursor position minus 1 from it. And we'll say as long as our cursor position is at 4, so four minus 1, character count minus 1. Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. We're going to iterate starting from the current cursor position minus 1. So we'll say input box input dot cursor position minus 1 is less than our input box input dot character count minus 1 I plus plus, then we'll get our current character. So we'll say char. No, we'll say input char t pointer current char is equal to our input box input dot characters index I dot characters index I we'll then say input box input dot characters at index I is equal to our next character. So we'll say input box input character count minus 1. No, not character count. It will be input box input dot characters index I plus 1. Then we'll say input box input dot characters index I plus 1 is equal to our current character. Then guys, we'll decrement. Alright, so we set our new count up here. So we'll get our current cursor position and we'll decrement that. So we'll say input box input dot cursor pos minus minus. We'll then say input box input box input dot characters is equal to our right, so we'll shift it to the end. We'll create a new pointer right here. Wait, hold on. So our input character count. Alright, so we'll say guys, if not new count, so that means if our new count will be 0, then we will just say input box input dot characters equals to null and input box input dot character count is equal to 0 and input box input dot let's just call our input box clear function. Our input box clear function already handles everything for us, and then we'll just return from our function. But if our new count is still valid and it's not 0, we can just say input box input dot cursor, no, not cursor, dot characters equals to realloc inputbox input.characters. Then we say inputbox input.character.new count. So we'll just pass in our new count variable that we have up here. So new count times the size of our input char underscore t. We'll then call our input box get primary data function, and we'll pass in our input box. Alright, so let's test out our backspace now. So we'll just say case in our SDL keydown event, we'll just say case the keys SDLK backspace. Then we'll call input box underscore backspace input box, and let's actually copy this and define that prototype within here. So let's test out our backspace and see if it works. Alright, so if we type hello and if we hit backspace, it works, but it crashed right there. Why is that? Let's use GDB for this, or debugger. Wait, I don't have GDB installed. Oh, yeah. Let's just try to read our code for now. Alright, so we're shifting our character to the end. Alright, let's see where this happens. Oh, we didn't even break right here. Printf calling backspace. Printf done calling backspace. And let's see if we still have a crash. So if we type G, hit backspace, it works, but it crashes for some reason. Oh, why is that? Wait, so I is less than our input box, input.character count. It says call in backspace, done call in backspace. Okay. Wait, let's try to debug this on Ubuntu Linux. WSL, because I don't have GDB installed on my host. So let's wait on WSL to load. Let's try to run our build.sh. Alright, so we have some warnings here. Oh, in our message list, we didn't include string loop str. That's because that's in our inputbox.c. Okay. Yeah, let's just focus on fixing this issue for now. Alright, so let's let that build. Oh, I'm doing -l minggw inside of this thing. That's inside of here. I'm not supposed to do that. Let's rerun our build.sh. Alright, let's type hello. We got a seg fault. So let's see, gdb. Let's run. And we got a seg fault where? Let's do a buck trace. We got a seg fault in our input box add input char function. Alright, let's see why is that happening. Seg fault. Wait, let's do something real quick. Alright, let's rerun our build script. Wait, what happened to my WSL terminal? Let me reopen this. Alright, so our crash happens here, so let's run. Alright, let's do it happen at data index 0. Why is that? So our new character count shift the last character to our input cursor position, but the crash happens in TTF size text. Why is that? Is the input box font null? Alright, let's print out our UTF-8 char and see what's going on. Our font is not null, so that cannot be the issue. Yeah guys, we're just debugging right now. Buck trace. Ah. Oh, so that means our UTF-8 character is null? Let's see. Wait, that's not it. Alright, what's going on? Wait, it is null? Wait, let's type some. What's up in an input jar? Wait, if we print out is it that our string is not being null terminated? Could that be it? Is something wrong with our duplication? Wait. Yeah, that's not it. Yeah, let's not call this an input jar function. Wait, something is wrong with this? Wait, what? Oh, probably it's the implicit declaration of function that's causing this. Oh, wait a minute, guys. So, hold on. I believe there is a /user include strings.h file. Oh, so I'm conflicting with it. No wonder why. So let's exit this, guys. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna rename our strings.c file, or strings.h file. We're gonna rename it to, let's call it upstring.h, and our strings.c, we're gonna rename it to upstring.c. So upstring.h, we're gonna just do that right there. Right, underscore upstrings, upstring. Right. So we're gonna need to modify these things. We're gonna include our up underscore string with .h header file. Upstrings.c. Right. We're gonna include upstrings.h. Right. Alright, that looks good. We're including upstrings again in here. In our up.c. This should be upstrings.h. Let's try to rerun or build script. We have a fatal error. That's because we need to modify our build.sh and link it with our upstrings.c. Let's also do this for the build.but script. So up underscore strings.c. Let's try to rerun our code. Alright, let's try to type something now. Alright, now it stops crashing because I was wondering how comes my code wasn't working, guys. But we figured it out. It was conflicting with a header file that was defined globally within /user include directory. So now that we've figured it out, yeah, we can just delete all of this right here. All of these debugging, print statements, and all of that. And then now, guys, we can try to rebuild it on our Linux machine. So let's try to type something, and we can see it's being displayed. Alright, now let's try to see if our backspace will crash our program. Okay, let's open up GDB on our main program and let's run it. And let's type something, hit backspace, and see where it crashes. So we'll do a backtrace. Did backspace. Wait, let's take a look at our backspace function. Let's rerun our code program. We'll type ABC, we'll press backspace, and it just crashes. We have a sig abort. From malloc it says unaligned T cache chunk detected. Okay. Wait, in our backspace, we call get primary data. Let's see something. So I run the main. I type F, like backspace. Doesn't crash this time. I type F again. But if I have, oh, hold on. If I type AB, then I backspace. Then it crashes. Ah. So something is wrong with this backspace thing. So our character count is 2, right? If we type AB, our character count is gonna be 2. So if our character count will be 2, therefore if our cursor position is at the end, so we say cursor pos minus 1, which is at 2, so we'll get 1. Our character count will be 2 minus 1, which will be 1. We'll say 1 is less than 1, which will give us false. And that false we will need to put box input cursor pos equals to 0 as well. So our backspace, why is it crashing? We set our current character equals to that. Index 1, which is B. Then try to shift it. Alright. Let's try to print out our input data after backspace. This ABC. Wait, we reallocate the memory. But we never null terminated it. Oh, so we need to do input box, input characters, input box, input dot character count -1 is equal to null. Let's see if this solves the issue. Wait, no, that shouldn't be it. No, that doesn't make sense. Alright, so our new count, we set it to the character count -1. Alright, let's replace this right here with just new count. Printf shifting to the end at index mod CUI. This should never run if we are at the end. So let's test this out. If we type F, then we hit backspace, FF backspace. Alright, so our cursor pauses at 2. Alright, hold on, give me a second. We type AB. We press backspace. AB is still it. Oh, okay. Okay. Wait, this means it's because we're not setting our new or character count equal to our new count, right? Like, this is it. But let's try to test this, guys. So we build. Alright, so if we type AB now. Alright, ABCD, we'll press backspace. No, it works. Alright. Hello world. So we can type, we can insert characters anywhere. Yep, can press backspace now. Alright. So that will be it for today's video, guys. In the next video, we'll be implementing our chat server, and we'll also add UTF-8 character input, like for multi-byte sequences, to our chat app, to our input box system, I mean. So that means we'll be able to input stuff like emojis and all of that. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next